You cannot outsource your way to a profitable practice. Now, you can outsource the bookkeeping, you can outsource the tax prep, but when it comes to the major financial decisions, like when to hire, when to purchase a device, if it makes sense to move to a larger location, even if you can afford to pay yourself consistently, these major decisions are yours to make. You are responsible for them and the profitability of your practice. And in order to take on that responsibility, you actually need to understand the numbers. You can't just hire somebody to organize the books and call it a day. And this is exactly what I'm sharing with you today. I'm Chelsea Zainea, and I'm a CPA, and I work specifically with medspa, HRT, and other cash-based wellness practices to help them build the financial systems they need to run a profitable practice and make decisions based on data instead of guesswork. And in this episode, I'm going to show you exactly why that's so important and tell you exactly what you need to know in order to make two of the biggest decisions that practice owners make. Okay, so let's take hiring, for example. Hiring is one of the biggest milestones for a practice owner. It's super exciting to bring somebody else on, but it is one of the most financially risky moves that a practice owner can make. Now, your bookkeeper can tell you what you've spent and what you've earned, but what they can't tell you is whether your practice is really ready to support another salary without putting your own salary or even your entire practice at risk. All of the information that you need to make this decision is just not going to come from your bookkeeping alone. Okay, so let's take my client D, for example. And she came to me because she wanted to hire another provider, and she actually had a bookkeeper, so she wasn't even doing her own bookkeeping. She had a bookkeeper already, and she'd asked her bookkeeper, but they're giving her vague answers and not really answering the question, kind of dancing around it. And that's just because the bookkeeping alone isn't going to answer this kind of question. There are several financial elements that you need to have a clear understanding of before you make a decision like this, and they're not all going to come from your bookkeeping reports. One of the metrics that you need to know before you hire is utilization. And this is a metric that you should be tracking. You can usually find it in your EMR dashboard, but your current utilization needs to actually support that hiring decision. It can't just be that you feel busy. The numbers need to back that up. And again, you're just not going to find that in your bookkeeping. Another element that you need to take into consideration is your cash flow. Does your cash flow support this decision? When you look 90 days out, are you able to cover the salary and the related benefits and expenses that come with it, even without that new provider generating any revenue at all? Because whether you like it or not, there's going to be a training period. So it's usually a 60 to 90 day training period before a provider is generating revenue and helping contribute towards covering that salary. And again, this information isn't going to come from your bookkeeping. This is a planning consideration. Bookkeeping covers historical information, so it's things that have already happened. We need to be looking into the future and have some visibility into our cash flow to make sure that this decision makes sense. A third element to consider is your financial cushion. You need to have 3 months of operating expenses, including this new salary, sitting in your cash reserves. Because if a slow month happens to hit right after you hire, you need to be able to absorb that salary and cover all of your expenses without creating a major problem. Okay, so my client D and I worked through every one of these financial considerations, and she's good to go financially. She's finishing up some onboarding prep and some SOPs, and then she's going to start interviewing. But she could have had a major problem had she not done that work first. Hiring without the right financial information isn't a growth move, it's a gamble. Having these other financial elements, along with the historical information provided by your bookkeeper, is what's going to allow you to make a confident, clear decision. Now, if you don't actually have books set up that are giving you useful information, I have created a DIY bookkeeping cheat sheet specifically for medspa, HRT, and other wellness practices. And it includes a chart of accounts that I set up specifically for how you do business. So that link is below and you can go and grab that if you need it. But stay with me because there's another major financial decision that practice owners rush into just as fast as hiring, and it comes with a major cost. Device purchases are probably the second most common financial decision I help clients make. The sales reps make these devices sound great and like they're going to generate a ton of additional revenue, but these purchases are actually very risky, and the financial information that you need in order to make a confident decision isn't all going to come from your bookkeeping reports. So let's take my client B, for example. When she came to me, she already had $80,000 saved up and ready to go, and she was really interested in purchasing this device. She'd done all the research on it, but what she didn't have was a clear financial picture. Here are some of the questions that you need to have answered before you pull the trigger on a decision like this. Okay, so the first one was similar to the hiring one. Does this payment fit into your cash flow plan? Can you make the payment without generating any new revenue from the device? If not, then you're definitely not ready. And this information isn't going to come from your bookkeeping reports, it's going to come from your forecast or your cash flow plan. It requires you to look at your current cash flow and look forward and make sure that this device payment can be absorbed by your practice without you having to generate additional revenues in order to make that happen. Also, similarly to the hiring question, we need to make sure that you have 3 months of operating expenses, including the new device payment, sitting in your cash reserves. So if you have a slow month or something comes up, you're able to continue to make these payments without creating some sort of cash flow crisis for yourself. Third question is, if you are financing this device, is the interest rate reasonable and are you working with a reputable lender? It's really easy with these devices to end up in some sort of unsavory loan situation to where it's not even really a loan and you're just making these payments over time and you end up paying 3 to 4 times what the actual investment for the device should have been. The fourth consideration is where the revenue side of the equation comes in. We want to make sure that your client base has already expressed interest in this treatment. It's something they're interested in and something they're going to be willing to invest in. We also want to take a look at your consultation conversion rate and make sure that you're already able to sell high ticket services. So my client B worked through every one of these considerations and she ultimately decided to put a portion of that $80,000 in savings down and keep the rest there as a financial cushion. She made a confident decision because she had the right information and it didn't all come from her bookkeeping reports. Here's what I want you to take from all of this. It is your bookkeeper's job to record what's already happened, but it is your job to decide what to do next. So these major decisions like hiring, buying a device, paying yourself consistently, or moving to a larger location aren't going to come from your bookkeeping reports alone. They're going to come from the planning and tracking work that go along with that. And in the next video, I'm showing you exactly what this looks like in a real practice because my client's bookkeeping was perfect, but her profits weren't. And when we dug in, what we found is probably closer to your situation than what you think.